These students in Hong Kong are commemorating the 31st anniversary of the Tiananmen Square massacre. Each year, they hold vigils for hundreds of pro-democracy activists who were killed by Chinese forces in Beijing. But they fear this year may be the last.
Generally, everyone's scared. The situation has gone out of hand. Even though a lot of pro-Beijing people are saying that it's safe, it's very safe to talk about what you want, you can still demonstrate, you can still go on the street, but I don't think it's that exactly the case here. I think it's the last time we have in Victoria.
That's because the Chinese government is extending its strict national security laws to Hong Kong. Two of the island's biggest banks, HSBC and Standard Chartered, have publicly praised the legislation. They say it will help stabilize the economy. But Beijing's move is drawing sharp criticism from US President Donald Trump's administration, and air travel is the latest casualty of rising US-China tensions. Washington is banning passenger carriers from the mainland from US airports. It says it's retaliating against similar restrictions by Beijing on US carriers. But Chinese officials say the move is unwarranted and they're allowing foreign airlines to resume flights from next week.
The Civil Aviation Administration of China was in close contact with the US Department of Transportation for the arrangement of passenger flights from both sides, and we already made some progress. China has already announced some policy adjustments. We hope the US will not create obstacles in the resolution of this issue.
International businesses in Hong Kong are already suffering because of soaring relations between the world's two largest economies.
We are stuck in the middle of a massive disagreement between two big economic powers, and it's a very uncomfortable place to be. Many of us have lived and worked in Hong Kong for years. We love Hong Kong. We care very much about the Hong Kong people, but we feel like we are collateral damage. On the other hand, the US-China relationship has reached a very difficult point, and that's something we have to be realistic about.
Beijing's also halting imports of US soybeans and pork. It had agreed to buy more American farm products under the Phase 1 trade deal with Washington. That could derail trade talks at a time when businesses in both countries are already suffering because of the coronavirus pandemic. Mobin Nasir, TRT World.
Well, for more on this, Anna Ashton joins us now from Washington, D.C. She's Director of Business Advisory Services at the US-China Business Council. Welcome back to the program, Anna. Now, let's start with this issue of air travel, because things seem to have come to a head after US airlines and government officials really failed to persuade Chinese authorities to allow them back into the country. Of course, things seem to have calmed down since then. But can you tell us, even though Chinese airlines have been flying into the US throughout all this, do you believe the issue has now been resolved?
I don't think that it's been resolved, and it's very interesting how things have played out because, you know, it does seem as if the U.S. Kind of threw down the gauntlet and declared that we would no longer allow Chinese flights to land as of June 16th because they didn't feel they were making progress with the Chinese government. But the reality is that, you know, almost immediately the Chinese government came out with an announcement that it actually was going to be relieving some of the restrictions that it had put in place. And there's no way that that sort of government decision was made simply in response to the U.S. statement. I'm sure that it was in the works for a while. So this may have just been unfortunate timing in the U.S. announcement.
Interesting. Can I ask you now about Hong Kong, which, as we know, has become the latest flashpoint between the US and China. There seems to be bipartisan support over in Washington now to punish China if it goes ahead with its plan to essentially strip Hong Kong of its autonomy. Do you think this issue could prove to be even more damaging than the trade war that's afflicted the two countries?
It certainly could. I think that Hong Kong is just the latest issue of many that are afflicting the U.S.-China relationship. The trade relationship right now is something that the U.S. media is very quiet about. We hear from the U.S. government that the trade agreement, the Phase 1 agreement, continues to be implemented in good faith by the Chinese side, the soybean announcement aside. And we have continued to hear from the Chinese government that it is committed to the agreement. So it's actually been going well so far, albeit just for a few months. However, this isn't what people are talking about in Washington. They're talking about Hong Kong. They're talking about supply chain security. They're talking about national security concerns and many, many other issues that have very little to do with the commercial relationship. Hong Kong certainly is important to the commercial relationship because it's played an enormous role for U.S. businesses operating in the Asia Pacific for many, many years. But I don't think that the U.S. policymakers who are concerned about what's happening in Hong Kong and about the national security law issue are motivated to maintain or not maintain the commercial relationship. They're really focused on their perception that this is a human rights issue.
Yes, and now we have two major British banks with a big presence in Hong Kong, HSBC and Standard Chartered, essentially throwing their support behind China's plan to enact this controversial national security law on Hong Kong. My question is, do you think that perhaps other firms that operate in Hong Kong might feel the pressure to do something similar, to express their support to Beijing?
I would be very surprised if U.S. firms did that, because they don't really want to be in the middle of a political disagreement between our two governments, of course. They want to be able to conduct business and be part of an economy that has been a brilliant light for the global economy for many, many years. And they want the best for the Hong Kong people, and they want a stable and peaceful environment to operate in. They're under a lot of pressure from the U.S. government as well. And so I would be surprised if they came out strongly with a statement that backed either side's political rhetoric.
Interesting. Okay. Anna Ashton from the US-China Business Council, thank you as always for joining us on the program.